Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Tuesday, January 9th. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. We'll go over to RotoWire and talk about the injuries in play. It's a 5-game main slate in total today, so nothing too crazy. Going to be some significant injuries out there that could shape this slate in a pretty big way, just in general, though. And then after that, we'll get over to DraftKings and FanDuel and talk about my core picks. So it's going to be one player at each position on both sites: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. So on the DraftKings side, at point guard, we had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, $10,400. Looking for at least 52 out of him, got to 54.5, so he was a pretty good hit on yesterday's slate. At shooting guard, we had Colin Sexton, $5,800. Looking for at least 29 out of him, got to 27. So technically he was a mess, but he did get to 27 in only 18 minutes. So if we get a couple extra minutes out of him, he would have cleared really easy yesterday. Had a really strong performance in the 18 minutes that he did ultimately end up playing. So not a guy that actively hurt our lineups, but not a guy that actively helped at the same time. At small forward, we had Jaylen Brown, $8,200. No Jason Tatum yesterday. Looking for at least 41 out of him, got to 48.25, so he was a really good hit. Kind of the one detriment for him yesterday is mainly just scored the ball. If he did a little bit extra, he probably would have been an even bigger hit. And then at power forward, we ultimately ended up on Pat Connaughton, $3,800, looking for at least 19 out. Only got to 11, so he was a mess. Played 22 minutes in this game. He just didn't do a whole heck of a lot in those minutes that he did play. If he got to some Andre Jackson Jr., probably it was a little better play ultimately yesterday. And then last but not least, at center, we had Chet Holmgren, $7,700, looking for at least 39 out of him. Got to 49.5, so he was a really good hit. So overall, pretty decent day for the most part on DraftKings. Pat Connaughton was kind of the one lone miss that really hurt us. Obviously, if you got to some Andre Jackson Jr., you're probably pretty happy. If you got to some other plays, had a good chance of cashing on yesterday's slate. Then on the FanDuel side, early on in the day, I had Cody Martin at that point guard position. He ultimately ended up getting rolled out, so I went with Terry Rozier at $8,800. Looking for at least 44 out of him, got to 54.6, so he was a really good hit on yesterday's slate. At shooting guard, we had Pat Connaughton, $4,100, looking for at least 21 out of him. Got to 9.9. As I mentioned on the DraftKings side, 22 minutes just didn't do a whole heck of a lot in that time. If you got to some Andre Jackson Jr., probably had a little bit better luck on yesterday's slate. At small forward, switched over to Chris Middleton. Obviously, like I said, you could play Chris Middleton and Jaylen Brown together, which is something that I did do quite a bit in most of my lineups. But Chris Middleton, $7,000, looking for at least 35 out of him, got to 44.6, so he was a really good hit on yesterday's slate. Then we got Nikola Jovic at power forward, $4,000, only looking for about 20 out of him, got to 34.6, so he was probably one of the better hits on yesterday's slate at about 9 times value, so he was a really good hit just in general. And then we had Kristaps Porzingis at center, $8,900, looking for 45 out of him, got to 43.5, so it did ultimately give him a push. Was not a guy that actively hurt our lineups yesterday, but not anybody that really put it over the top at the same time as well. So it was a pretty decent day overall. As long as you get to some other decent plays, you should have cashed on both sides yesterday just in general. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about those injuries in play. So once again, it is a 5-game main slate. We got 2 games starting right at 7 o'clock today. We are going to start off with the Sacramento Kings, who have Trey Lyles listed as questionable due to an ankle injury. We'll see whether or not he ultimately plays or not, but not quite a big factor for DFS purposes today, just in general. For the Detroit Pistons, Monty Morris and Isaiah Stewart both remain out. Cade Cunningham does join them. He injured his knee in his most recent game. So we're probably going to get some value here, whether it's Killian Hayes in that starting lineup or Alec Burks. One of those two guys will end up starting to look like decent value. Jaden Ivey gets a pretty big bump up. All this Detroit Pistons team is going to see a little bit of a bump too, with no Cade Cunningham out there, as he is obviously their best player and the guy that eats up the most usage just in general. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, just Jalen Clark out once again, so essentially all the way healthy at this point in time. The Orlando Magic are without Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, Joe Ingles, Jonathan Isaac, and Franz Wagner. So quite a few guys out once again. We saw Caleb Houston and Chuma Okeke both start in their most recent game. Those guys could be interesting value plays. We did also see Markelle Fultz make his return, so we'll see whether or not he ultimately ends up starting or not. Could be a little bit of value opening up on this Magic team just in general. Then we move over to the Portland Trailblazers, who have Moses Brown out once again. DeAndre Ayton listed as doubtful. So Dot Breath looks like an interesting play at center, although he is priced up quite a bit on both sides now at this point in time. Jabari Walker is listed as questionable to play with his knee injury. We'll see whether or not he's back tonight or not. And then Matisse Thybulle also listed as questionable due to a foot injury. On the New York Knicks side, they appear to be all the way healthy at this point in time, so no real changes to be had there. And then we move down to the Memphis Grizzlies. So the big news for them is star point guard Ja Morant is going to be out for the season. He is having surgery on his shoulder for a torn labrum, so that really impacts his team quite a bit overall, but could open up some value today just in general. Derrick Rose and Brandon Clark both remain out. Santi Aldama listed as doubtful. Then we got Jaren Jackson Jr. listed as questionable due to his knee injury, so if he's unable to go, could be a lot of value opening up on this Memphis team overall. If he plays, still a guy that we would like in our lineups at the same time as well. Then for the Dallas Mavericks, we got Dante Exum, Maxi Kleber, Derek Lively all out once again. Grant Williams listed as probable, did play in their most recent game, so I would expect him to play once again tonight. And then Luka Doncic technically listed as questionable. I believe it's due to an ankle injury at this point in time. Not a lot of news about it. We'll see whether or not he plays or not tonight, but if he misses, then obviously opens up a little bit of value there. Maybe Jaden Hardy enters that starting lineup. Obviously, Hardy would get a bump up there, Tim Hardaway Jr., as well as Kyrie Irving. And then all these guys just start to look a little bit better at the same time as well. For the Toronto Raptors, they're without Christian Koloko, and now he is joined by Jakob Poeltl. So Jakob Poeltl being out with a sprained ankle for at least this game, maybe the next game, is going to be a pretty big factor for Toronto overall. Chris Boucher is going to look like a really interesting play, especially if he ends up starting. If he doesn't end up starting, they've been playing a little bit of Jonte Porter a little bit as of late, and he's actually played pretty well in the small minutes that he's played. So both guys should be pretty live on this slate just in general. And then we got Otto Porter Jr. listed as doubtful once again. And then last but not least for the Lakers, we got Gabe Vincent out once again. Rui Hachimura listed as doubtful. And then LeBron James listed as questionable. And Anthony Davis listed as probable. So nothing too crazy here. Obviously, Rui Hachimura is going to be kind of the biggest one. Opens up a little bit of value for other guys, but nothing too crazy at this point in time. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries in play for today's slate. As always, I will be leaving injury updates down in the comments throughout the day, as well as the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks over there. So on the DraftKings side, we're going to start off at the point guard position with Killian Hayes. I'm assuming that he is starting for the Detroit Pistons at that point guard spot in place of Cade Cunningham tonight. $4,500, pretty decent price tag there. Looking for 22, 23 out of him. He's averaging about 21 so far in the season. Good pace-up spot versus the Kings as well tonight. So if he's out there, if he's playing decent-sized minutes, I would expect him to get around 25 DraftKings points. Has a little bit upside for more, has a little bit downside for less, but looks like a solid all-around play regardless. If it's not him, if it's Alec Burks, then maybe we play Jaden Ivey in this spot just instead. Then at shooting guard, we're going to go with Shaedon Sharpe, $5,700, a guy that's price tag did bump up to about $8,000 at one point in time. When he was playing big minutes, he played a lot of minutes in their most recent game, I believe 39 or 40. So if he can do that once again tonight, $5,700, he should blow that price tag out of the water. You're looking for 28, 29 out of him, averaging 29.5 so far in the season. Not the greatest matchup in the world versus the New York Knicks, but still do expect him to get around 30 tonight, especially if he's going out there and playing those big minutes once again, especially with some of those injuries that Portland does have in general. And then we move down to small forward with RJ Barrett, $6,500, maybe a little bit of an elevated price tag, but he's played pretty well with Toronto as of late. He's coming off that big performance versus the Golden State Warriors just in general. I don't mind the matchup versus the Lakers tonight, $6,500, looking for 32, 33 out of him. Currently I'm projected for about 35, might have a little bit upside for more, might have a little bit downside for less at the same time as well. Then at power forward, we're going to go with Chris Boucher at $4,500, looking for 22, 23 points out. When he plays big minutes, typically he does have really good performances. Like I said, it could be him today. It could be Jonte Porter, but they're probably going to split that center minutes just a little bit. Even if you're getting 26 minutes out of Chris Boucher at this price tag, he's going to look really good overall. Currently, I'm projected for 28 points, but definitely could have some upside for more at the same time. And then last but not least, we have Isaiah Hartenstein, $6,400, looking for at least 32 out of him, but playing really well as of late. It's a great matchup versus Portland, who doesn't have too much left in terms of bigs. DeAndre Ayton's out there, Moses Brown. Dapreeth's fine, but he's not the greatest rebounder in the world, so it should be a favorable matchup for Isaiah Hartenstein just in general. Like I said, you're looking for 32 out of him. Currently, I'm projected for about 34, 35 tonight, but definitely does have some pretty strong upside for more as we've seen out of him in recent games. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $22,400 remaining, just under $7,500 per player. So a good amount of money left over, whether you want to pay up for a stud or whether you want to kind of take a balanced approach for the rest of the slate today. It could ultimately end up being a pretty interesting one in general. Maybe we get some other values that do open up throughout the day, but at least as of right now, it looks like a really solid slate. I can't really complain on this 5-game main slate. We do have some decent value out there and some interesting pivot options at the same time as well. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So we're going to start off at the point guard position. On FanDuel, I have Jaden Ivey here at $6,400. Once again, no Cade Cunningham. So he's going to take on a bigger role, which we did see him do a lot of times last year. $6,400. Looking for 32 fantasy points. I'm averaging about 24 so far in the season. Some of that at the beginning of the year is coming off the bench. Minutes a little bit limited as of late, but with no Cade Cunningham out there, have to assume that he's probably going to play 30-plus minutes in a favorable matchup versus the Sacramento Kings. Going to have a little bit more usage, probably going to score the ball a little bit more at the same time as well. So definitely do like him tonight. Do have him currently projected for about 33, 34, but definitely has a strong upside for more at the same time as well. Then at shooting guard, this was a hard position for me to pick on FanDuel today. I think everybody's just a little bit more expensive than I would like. But I ultimately ended up on OG Anunoby, $6,200. You can play him at small forward as well. Goes against Portland tonight. It's going to be a pace-up spot just in general. Pretty favorable matchup there. He's been all right since he's been with the Knicks. I think we're going to see some games where he does play some bigger minutes. Once again, Tom Thibodeau likes running his starters kind of into the ground at times. You know, OG Anunoby's kind of used to it with Nick Nurse in the past, but if you can get some of that upside out of him tonight at $6,200, looking for 31 out of him, and I currently have him projected for about 32, could offer a little bit of upside for more in a positive matchup. You know, maybe this is a pick that does change throughout the day, but definitely don't mind him at this point in time. Then at small forward, we're going to go with Caleb Houston here. So he started their most recent game. He played big minutes. He's played big minutes in 2 out of their last 3 games. He's paid off at their price tag in 2 out of the last 3 games for $4,600. Looking for 23 out of him. You know, maybe this is a pick that changes throughout the day. But if he's out there, if he's playing decent-sized minutes, he's going to look like a pretty good value option just in general. Currently having projected for about 26 FanDuel points tonight. Definitely could have some upside for more. Could have some downside for less, just kind of depending on his situation. So we'll keep an eye on that as the day moves along. But definitely a guy that does warrant some consideration with his recent play. Then we move down to power forward once again with Chris Boucher, $4,800, so $300 more expensive on the FanDuel side. Looking for 24 out of him tonight. You can play him at power forward, you can play him at center. Don't mind the matchup versus the Lakers. You know, he's a guy that similar body type to Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis does have a little bit more weight on him, but I do like what Chris Boucher can do on a points per minute basis. If he's going out there, if he's playing 26 minutes, going to look pretty good overall. Currently having projected for about 28 fantasy points tonight. Could have a little bit of upside for more, maybe a little bit of downside for less, but at this point in time, looks like one of the better value plays, at least early on. And then last but not least, we got Dwight Powell at $5,000 at center. So if you wanted to move Chris Boucher to center, play somebody else at power forward, that definitely does make some sense. Ultimately end up playing Dwight Powell here. It's a pretty attractive matchup versus the Memphis Grizzlies, especially if Jaren Jackson doesn't play because they're less likely to go small in that situation. So you get more Bismack Biyombo and Xavier Tillman minutes out there, especially without Santi Aldama. He's doubtful tonight as well. So I do like the matchup for him just in general. $5,000 looking for 25 out. Pretty much what he's done the last couple games. Obviously, there is no Derek Lively at this point in time. Rashawn Holmes did miss some time. Do like him once again tonight. Currently, I'm projected for about 25, 26. You know, just kind of a safe play at the very least. A guy that's not going to cost you a lot of money and probably just going to pay off at his price tag when most of the centers on tonight's slate are a little bit overpriced in my personal opinion. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here on FanDuel, you have $33,000 remaining, just over $8,200 per player. So good amount of room and flexibility there. Obviously, if you want to pay up for some guys, definitely does make some sense. If you want to take a little bit more balanced approach, you can definitely do that on today's 5-game main slate as well. And once again, it's going to be a very interesting slate. I think there's going to be a decent amount of values on tonight's slate and some pretty interesting options and decision points, which will ultimately make this end up being a pretty interesting 5-game main slate. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, Tuesday, January 9th. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to note whether those questions are more FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then, as always, I'll be listing all the injury reports down in the comments below, as well as those starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. And then last but not least, I will have my updated core about 15 to 20 minutes prior to lock as a pinned comment. Sometimes it comes out a little bit before that. Yesterday, that was the case, but be on the lookout for that pinned comment. Just in general, if there's any other updates after that point in time, I will leave them as a reply to that pinned comment as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have NBA DFS Monday through Friday in terms of the core picks. NFL DFS recently just ended, so hopefully you guys had some pretty good success in NFL DFS this season. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Prize Picks, and Parlay Play. If you are a brand new user to any one of those three sites, when you make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's 100% of your initial deposit up to $100. For BetUS, it's 125% of your initial deposit up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to sports betting or prop betting just in general, feel free to reach out, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Greg Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.